Take the stairs. Take the stairs. For God's sake, take the stairs. Hello, Huge Movie Fanatic Nate coming at you to do a movie/Blu-ray review of a movie that I saw originally, I think, in 2002. I'm coming at you to review the movie in the recently released Blu-ray of The Lift. This is a Dutch movie that I saw, I think, in 2002, and I liked it. Blue Underground just recently released this within the last several weeks, so I, obviously being a fan of this movie, ended up buying this and just recently watched it, and now I'm going to review it. So this is a VHS from Media Entertainment that I acquired back in, it says, it's really cool. I love when places do this. They put dates on their stickers. I got it in probably the summer of 2002 for a marked down price of $1.99. This looked right up my alley. I don't think I'd ever heard of it at the time, and this cover is really cool where it's just like the guy, it's the lift and the guy's head stuck in the elevator, and the famous tagline at the bottom there. And here's the back of the VHS from Media. It looks like somewhere along the line they taped the flap to the outside versus putting it, I guess you can't tape it, so, well, yeah, okay. Probably easier to tape it to the outside than the inside, but here's the back of the VHS. And obviously in Europe and stuff like that, elevators, we call them in America, are called lifts. And the elevator would be kind of a stupid title anyway. Even if, the lift is, I don't know, I think it looks better and sounds better. So these are the two video incarnations of this movie that I own. So now on to my review of The Lift. So it starts, first off the bat, it's got really cool, I guess 80s. This is when did this? All right, it's saying 1985 on the back of the VHS. So it's got a really cool, mid 80s soundtrack, just this wow, 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 whatever like that. And I'm just, obviously the Media VHS from North America obviously included the American dub version. This movie is a Dutch movie originally. I would imagine they're originally speaking Dutch in the movie. So this is a review, incidentally, of the dubbed version. I didn't. You do have the option of watching The Lift on the newly released Blu-ray in original Dutch language in 5.1 actually. And since I enjoyed so much the English dub, I think it kind of makes this movie more fun. When I watched the Blu-ray recently, I just watched the English dub version, and I would imagine maybe if you watched the original Dutch language version, it would be a much more serious, maybe the film would be a lot more serious. But again, I do think that the English dub version actually just adds an extra layer of camp or fun or whatever, non-seriousness about the movie, which is kind of entertaining. So the movie off the bat starts with a really cool, something that like the movie Speed would do like 10 years later, this really cool shot of just an elevator shaft, and I think it's just like, brrr, the lift comes up into the screen and goes by, and it's just, brrr, the music is blah. I mean, it's not blah music, I'm just saying the music does something, like when the lift comes into the shot, it's just like, durr, durr, whatever. And that was a really cool way to start this movie and to do I want to say that the opening credits are maybe completely done in the elevator shaft. I don't know, but I think the title, the scene with the title or whatever is revealed with inside the elevator shaft when the lift actually goes past the screen or whatever. This movie's basically about, from what I can understand, just one stormy night in this office building, a bolt of lightning, zaps this elevator control panel or something like that, and basically possesses this lift. Now, I'm having just rewatched it recently when I got this Blu-ray within the last week. I'm kind of confused. They talk about, organic microchips and all this kind of funny stuff, and there's this other company that built the circuit board part of the lift. I'm going to try to keep calling it the lift versus elevator. And I'm kind of confused about this because this one guy who is working on the lift actually breaks open to this other company, provides the electronics, from what I understand, to the lift. And their box on the wall is all locked and whatever, and can only be accessed by their technicians and stuff. I want to say it's the Rising Sun Company, which is the people responsible for, from what I can understand, the actual electronic microchip controls of the lift. And when the guy who's working, the other guy who's presumed the main star of this movie, who's working on the other parts of the elevator, he pries open that box and it's actually empty. So I'm kind of confused if maybe this movie is more deeper than I think it is, because originally back in 2002 when I saw it, I thought the bolt of lightning just basically possessed whatever, just kind of possessed the lift. But I think upon rewatching it recently, that this Rising Sun Company tried to do maybe use some different, there's talk about organic microchips in this movie, or chips as they keep calling them. So I don't know. I'm kind of confused on the, maybe someone can leave it in the comments, what exactly is the reason for the lift going wrong, because I thought maybe their new kind of way of sneakily, because then the guy at the end of the movie finds in the elevator shaft this weird, circuitry and whatever, and this like slime dripping off the circuitry, so it's really confusing. It's almost like an alien ooze or something possessed the circuitry of the lift. I don't know, but I think, that's the basic gist of it. So I think at the very minimum, the lightning bolt, interfered with whatever control circuitry that the Rising Sun Company put into this particular lift. So at the beginning of the movie, there's this party with these two couples, these two businessmen who presumably just have models / escorts or whoever these girls are, and they get into the lift. And I can't stress how fun this movie is with the English dub track. And like I say, I'm going to have to revisit the movie and actually watch it for the very first time with the original Dutch track with English subtitles. But the movie is the English dub track just adds so much of an extra fun layer to this movie. And these guys are getting in the elevator, and the elevator, that's when at the very beginning of the movie, the lightning bolt zaps it, and the lift becomes possessed or whatever, or starts thinking on its own or whatever, and they get trapped in the lift, and it's getting all hot, and it's absolutely ridiculous. This one guy basically takes his, the woman he's with, and just basically rips open her blouse or takes her shirt off, and he's just like trying to get it on. It's just so ridiculous. It's particularly, especially with the English dub, it's just like he's getting it on with this woman he's with, when the other woman and the other guy are right in the same lift with them, and the other woman's on the ground like, the other woman and the other guy are just so overcome by the heat, they're just oblivious, and this other guy is trying to get it on with this other woman he's with, who's oblivious too, and she's against the lift wall going, and the guy's just suckling on her tits and trying to get up in her, and it's just like the most ridiculous scene. I don't think those people actually end up dying. The movie does this really cool escalation of events where, the first event scene at the beginning of the movie is just something that could be seen as a malfunction or whatever, and the people, I don't think, die. And then of course, I will kind of spoil it by saying, the next event scene, well, maybe I won't spoil it. I'll just say the next scene with the elevator involves a guy who's blind, and and then in this kind of cat and mouse game, the possessed lift is playing with this blind guy who's all alone and trying to get in the elevator on his own. We'll just leave it at that. And then I do have to, I can't do the review without spoiling, in my opinion, what's just a standout, basically, lift kill scene, if you will, which is pretty much, this thing right here, which is this one guy's head gets, he's looking at the lift and the door shut on his head and trap his head, while the lift is not, he's looking at the shaft and the lift is above him, and the door shut and closed on his head, and he's unable to pull his head out. You know how it is when you got kids who stick their head between a chair, inside of a wooden chair thing, and they can't pull it back out because their ears are, prohibiting that. It's like the same basic thing. So this guy's head's trapped in the thing, this other guy that's helping him with, the situation is watching, and before you know it, the lift, the lift is above him and starts coming down. He's like, "Get me out of here!" And actually, it's it's a really cool scene where the lift's coming down and he's like stuck, and then there's this really cool slow motion shot of the other guy who's witnessing, kind of backing up in horror, and something about like shooting that shot in slow motion, it's like makes the whole scene for me so much more tense. Like you could have just shown him in normal speed backing up and going like, "Oh my gosh," but it's in the shot of the guy in terror backing away from the scene, watching in horror and backing away, is in slow motion. So I don't know, it's just such a great creative cinema choice to do that. It just makes the scene so much more horrific. And yes, obviously, eventually, the lift does come down and decapitate this guy, which is just like, oh my gosh. One thing I will say about the scene that they probably should have done is they actually cut from the real guy's head directly to the shot of the fake head without anything in between it. I probably would have shot, as a matter of fact, I could do this on my computer just to see what it looked like. I think it would have been much more effective to cut away to that, the guy witnessing, the event and looking on in horror, and then back to the fake head. It might not look quite as fake if you, cut away and then cut from the real guy and cut away to someone else or something else, and then back to the fake head. But they cut from the real guy directly to the shot of the fake head, which, in my opinion, didn't really work incredibly well. But unfortunately, I remember this movie being better than than it was for me when I revisited it. As a matter of fact, if I had watched the VHS, upon the news of this coming out on Blu-ray, if I had watched the VHS, maybe very much like I did with the, Night School, I may not have got this Blu-ray. I mean, I like this movie better than Night School, definitely. And, it's not, to actually have commentary with the director, which is in English. I sampled a little bit of it, so the actual, the commentary is actually in English. That's something I was wondering about, like, is it going to be in Dutch? Commentary in Dutch with English subtitles? But, so the rest of the movie, it's better than, in my opinion, Night School, but I'm kind of on the fence, if I should have bought it or not or whatever. But it's cool to have this really, really, really pristine version of it with, the interview with the guy who's well, I'll get to those details later. Anyway, I'm continuing to review the movie. So basically the gist of the movie is about this main star guy who's, who works at the lift, company to install and service these particular lifts, and the whole, all this stuff keeps happening where people are, getting baked in the lift, and the lift seems to be malfunctioning over and over and over, and this guy is, throughout the course of the movie, he's getting a little suspicious, like, why is all this stuff happening? And he kind of becomes a lift, technician / detective guy who's really just gets himself invested in trying to figure out what the hell is actually going on with this lift, which is a kind of a cool story and stuff like that. And one of the plot points, having revisited this movie, that I thought was really not needed is something that ends up coming along later, is this character of this woman, reporter woman who comes along. I mean, that point is fine, but what they end up doing with the fact that she's, relatively attractive reporter woman, is that, a couple, another presumably married couple, friends of him and his wife, this guy's got a wife, the main character's got a wife and 2 kids, their friends, basically, the friend of him and his wife end up seeing him together with this reporter out at lunch when they're just talking about the lift stuff. They're not on a date, but then, his wife gets wind of the fact that, he was seen with another woman, and, his wife leaves him, and all this crap, which I don't understand. When she confronted him about cheating on her, he just sat there and he didn't say, like, I wasn't cheating on you, and I don't think he explained, like, the fact that who she really was and how he wasn't cheating. Maybe he didn't figure it's worth bothering because maybe she wouldn't believe him anyway. But I mean, stuff like this that is just like, what the hell is this in the movie for? And then, like, his wife ends up taking the kids and leaving them at the end, or towards the end of the movie, And it's like, that's just like not resolved at all, and I just felt like, what's the point of that? There's also this scene where I guess a former coworker of his working on lifts or whatever, maybe it was working on this lift, I don't know, but was basically went crazy somewhere along the line, and I don't know if it's because he's working on lifts that were done with the electronics, the shady electronics installed by Rising Sun Company or whatever. But there's a scene where he basically goes to visit this ex-coworker in a nut house or whatever, that I felt like it's just kind of almost like, what, I don't know if that scene had any point to it or anything. He just goes to try to ask him some questions, and I don't think he really responds, and then some woman throws chocolate against the wall and he's going nuts or whatever, and it's just kind of okay, whatever. So at the end of the day, I mean, revisiting it, I was kind of like, oh man, this isn't as great as I remember it. So I'm afraid I'm only going to be able to give the lift 2 2.25 stars out of 4 stars. Maybe, I don't know, maybe teetering on 2.5 stars out of 4. I just felt, the setup is absolutely fantastic, and some of the gimmicks and the ideas and kills they come up with for, to dispatch people with an elevator is good, but there wasn't as many, I guess, I'm saying elevator, as many lift kills as I guess I remember. I guess maybe back when I originally bought the tape, I wasn't expecting anything, and then it was a lot better than I expected, so then it was just like, wow, and then now I expected something better, and it wasn't as good as I remember, and it's just like, whatever. So what I'm saying is, the middle of the movie, it starts off really good in setting up the killer lift, if you will, and the stuff like that, and actually having the row of 3 lifts, which later on with the little girl, which is kind of pictured here, the lift plays kind of a trick on her, where this door opens, this door opens, this door opens, and whatever and stuff. So having the 3 lift doors is kind of cool. But in my opinion, having rewatched it recently, like the middle part really, it's just like longer than it needs to be. I can't remember how long it is. I think it's like 100 minutes long or something. In my opinion, it could have been 80. 84, 85 minutes, something like that. But I will say, like, so for me, that's the problem with the movie. Like, the middle of the movie lags, and the stuff with the female reporter I felt like was just not needed. But I guess maybe the writer thought that he needed to have someone for this guy to interact with, instead of being alone the whole movie, trying to figure out this, lift mystery on his own. And it should be said before I end the review of the movie that there's this really funny scene where they go to see this, I don't know, professor of microchips or whatever, and the English dub version is so funny. This scene is just like, chips, and he's just giving this, lecture just to these 2 people, this guy and the main star guy and the reporter woman, and it's just like, I can't remember any of the dialogue, but it's just like a chip that was, and they just say the word chip so many times. It's just like a chip with the ability to think or reproduce. Chips, imagine that. Chips that can actually reproduce themselves, and just all this just goofy ass stuff with this guy giving a lecture on chips. But I guess that's probably why they felt like they had to have this other reporter woman character. Otherwise it's just this guy on his own, and there's like never any dialogue in the movie. Either him just completely quiet looking into all this stuff, or him talking to himself. So I don't know. So, it starts out great in my opinion. The middle part is, can be a little laggy at times. I will say the end scene where he's like actually, on the lift, and it's just, must have been really difficult to, film this relatively intricate scene at the end of the movie where he's actually on top of the lift itself, in the lift, I imagine they call it a lift shaft. And really dark, really just creepy atmosphere, dramatic scene, and they got a lot of nice coverage, and it must have been difficult to film in the lift shaft, if you will. And that scene where he, the lift is kind of giving him crap and trying to keep him away from it, and he actually ends up discovering I don't know if it's a hidden, circuit board to control the lifts that's covered with this ooze. I don't think they fully, either I'm just dense and I don't understand something that's very simple, or they don't fully explain what the hell's going on with this hidden control panel microchip thing with this, the green slime in it or whatever. So that's my review of the movie. Now on to the review of the absolutely fantastic Blu-ray recently released by Blue Underground, which incidentally, on image and sound quality, got a perfect score on Blu-ray.com, which is something that doesn't happen very often, but Blue Underground is known for being relatively great with their releases, so I think it's happened, in the past with Blue Underground, but it's a relatively impressive score for any Blu-ray release, really. So that if you place any, whatever importance on their scores, I just thought I'd mention that it scored really well on Blu-ray.com with one of their particular reviewers or whatever. And I will say, yes, the image is absolutely striking, absolutely amazing. It's, as I say so many times on so many Blu-ray reviews, I can't imagine this movie looking any better than this. They don't mention anything about, oh, okay, here it is. Brand new 2K restoration from the original negative, approved by the director. So, very cool. And as always, I'll put a shot of the back so you can see the extras on this particular release. You got audio commentary with the director and editor, going up, an interview with the star. And I will say that being a fan of just water and being on the water myself, this interview is one of the most visually beautiful interviews of anyone that I've ever seen. It's this guy who's probably got this is probably his boat or whatever, and somewhere in Europe, I would imagine, on some river. It's almost like Venice or something, some river that's just in the middle of the city or something like that. An absolutely gorgeous sunny day, and they're doing this interview, which I can't remember how long it is, if it's 9 minutes or something. They tell you how long the short is, but they don't tell you how long. I think the interview with the star is like 9 minutes long or something, but the whole thing is outdoors in a beautiful sunny day with this beautiful, scenery of him being on this particular river or whatever. So it's a video which features the star of this movie, and he's speaking English, so it's not like he's speaking Dutch and you have to watch subtitles. And then you got this extra feature here, which is a short film done by the director of The Lift, a 4-minute short film. He did this in 2003, so like a year after I originally saw this movie, he did this short. Long Distance, which is really, really kind of just cool. I mean, it kind of reminds you how fun shorts can be. I mean, 4 minutes long, and it tells this kind of, well, I guess you've got to get the Blu-ray or you got to get the Blu-ray to see. But it's in 4 minutes you can be moved. It just shows the testament to a good filmmaker. He can move you in 4 short minutes. You got a Dutch trailer, U.S. trailer, poster and still gallery, bonus collectible booklet with new essay by writer and filmmaker, blah blah blah. And incidentally, this is a Blu-ray/DVD combo pack collector's edition, so that's the cover as it comes out of the package. And then I've said so many times that I'm not a big booklet guy. I don't really care one way or another, but for you people who do, here's the booklet. There's a shot of the VHS from media, that's right there. Here on this page here is a picture of the guy going at it with that woman in the lift. That's ridiculous. And here's another ridiculous scene that's I can't even remember who these people are, but they're cheating at work. It's just like, that's one thing I will give this movie. It's positively, ridiculous. Here is presumably the director guy. I think I don't know if he did the music as well, but right there is him on the keyboard. But the booklet looks pretty good. Here's oh, I see. This is like the remake or whatever, I'd never seen. I do have the movie Devil, which is I think about a possessed elevator as well on Blu-ray. I never watched it yet, but one of the many movies I have in piles that I've never watched. But here are the, it is for not being a booklet fan, it's a pretty good booklet. I didn't show you all the pages, but one thing I'm not keen on is the way they actually do the discs in here. I don't think I have a Blu-ray or DVD case that does this, where it's kind of like, you know, one of the discs is there and the other one's like, you know, slid under the other one. I'm not a huge fan of that kind of packaging, but whatever. And in closing of the Blu-ray review, as so many special edition Blu-ray releases of old horror movies or whatever often do, you have the option for this artwork, which I would imagine was probably Dutch artwork, which is, you know, relatively good artwork. You've got the option for this cover, or you can turn the artwork around and have this cover, which is basically that artwork. And it looks like you do get maybe a couple of, I think, different pictures there on the back. But that's my review of the movie The Lift and the Blu-ray release of The Lift. So thank you very much for watching this review, and as always, we'll catch you next time. And for God's sake, please take the stairs.